gentlemen, this is Katyayni, and on behalf of Voice of Healthcare Incubator, I welcome you all to this very special interview series, VOH Incubator Visionaries Unplugged. Through this series, we will bring to you our distinguished mentors and advisors with their extensive knowledge and wisdom to guide you through various aspects of the healthcare industry. This series is not just about insights, it is about unraveling the personal journeys, challenges and triumphs of our esteemed guests. We will be delving deep into their unique perspectives and most importantly extracting actionable advice that you, our audience, can apply to your own entrepreneurial journeys. Our guest today is VOH Incubator's esteemed advisor, Dr. Vishal Gandhi, the founder and CEO at BIORx Venture Advisors Private Limited and Chief Ideator at Indian Healthcare Angels. Dr. Gandhi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to be back to VOH.
Yes. So, Dr. Gandhi has an overall 22 plus years of strong experience of deal making in terms of investments, mergers and acquisitions, and due diligence processes focused on healthcare and life sciences. He is amongst the top 20 dedicated healthcare investment bankers in the country. He has had a long entrepreneurial journey with 3 major companies. He was a founding team member of OnQuest, a venture of 𝐷𝗃𝗏. He was also the founding team member at the molecular diagnostics wing of 𝘀𝗀𝗰𝗿𝗏 and was the head of healthcare and life sciences banking at Yes Bank. One of the key projects was financing Medanta during his journey at Yes Bank. BIORx, which is his entrepreneurial venture, has under his inspiring leadership helped over 100 private companies, few public companies and 10 plus foreign MNCs into the India foray since its inception in 2012 towards venture creation and scaling up. So today we will be having his invaluable pieces of advice on attracting investment for healthcare startups. So without further ado, let us begin. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr.
Thank you, Katyayni.
And as I already mentioned, the vast experience that you have had in the field of healthcare and mentoring startups. So we don't really know your journey. How did you get here? How did you reach here? So if you could just begin with sharing your journey with us and what inspired you to venture into the field of healthcare and life sciences.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. And so I think my entry to healthcare started when my father, he was diagnosed with kidney ailment, and I really felt helpless. I was like 9 years old, and I felt that I wish I can bring a change in healthcare system at that time. I'm talking about 1985, 86. And due to some financial burden and other things, we underwent a lot of struggle for his health. And literally we lost him when I was in class 7th. And then I realized that there is something that I should definitely do in my career is about addressing something in healthcare. I always wanted to become doctor, and I did write my exam for doctor, becoming like a doctor. But then we didn't have adequate capital to be able to pay for the fee. And but my desire and my determination was not waived. But somewhere I felt that I should continue to be in my life sciences field. So I got through South Campus Delhi University for my bachelor's, and post that I entered into a very interesting field called biotechnology, where I feel today that biotechnology was a great decision for me. Understanding the nuances at a molecular level of any healthcare challenge today is becoming an importance, because we are talking of molecular diagnostics. So the challenges also have to be understood from the molecular way. And so biotechnology, gave that kind of insight to me, and I ended up doing my master's in biotech from the University of Hyderabad, School of Life Sciences, which is one of the best among the Central University campuses. And I would say that that really gave me a kind of an insight that there's something on drug discovery, and drug discovery is very key to solve a problem proactively, and that's how I ended up getting a job at 𝐷𝗃𝗏. And the area that I picked up in 𝐷𝗃𝗏, in fact, 𝐷𝗃𝗏 was having a very strong focus in oncology, and so in oncology, we were working on anti-cancer drug development. But then somewhere, I got fascinated with the IT part of bio, and today we talk about what is next bio. Actually, IT is becoming bio, and I'm talking about that I was trained as a first bioinformatician in 2001, 22 years ago at Dabur, and then I realized that, maybe there's a way to look at data and how the data could be used to predict cancer. So one of my key project was to really look at the biomarkers and identifying the specific biomarkers to cater to a specific disease of cancer. And we ended up securing very good biomarkers through bioinformatics approach, and that led to incubation, I would say, within Dabur family business called Dabur Research Foundation, incubation of OnQuest. And OnQuest, being a private company, could not be incorporated under Dabur Research Foundation. It was initially incorporated under Dabur India Limited, and then quickly it had its own business model, so it turned out to be an OnQuest company. At the same time, interacted with 100 oncologists, understood go-to-market, right? And there was nothing called go-to-market at that time. Neither I had kind of business degree at that time. But understanding go-to-market by interacting with 100 plus oncologists and selling them the services of molecular diagnostic like OnQuest was a path-breaking experience. And good part was that Dabur was actually working and selling drugs on cancer. So a lot of doctors were aware about Dabur, so it was not a very hard sell, and it was more like a backward integration for us, And I was not very familiar with these management lingo, but I think I was very fortunate to be trained under Dr. Rama Mukherjee and Dr. Anand Burman, who was the chairman of Dabur India Limited at that time. So I think a young guy, have no business degree at that time, getting exposure like this truly became a transformative reason for me to do deep dive into a healthcare sector. And at the same time, Ranbaxy was something which was happening. Ranbaxy made a great success in pharmaceutical, but they also wanted to get into biotech, and I became a founding team member of the biotech department. And there again, from molecular diagnostics, I ended up getting into genomics. So I set up the first private genomics lab in the country, through Ranbaxy's support. And I feel that that was again very, very path-breaking, and Ranbaxy being a big company. But for me, it was again a very entrepreneurial experience, because I really worked like an owner, And the good part is, wherever I have worked, in any organization I have worked, I always work like an owner. Doesn't matter whether I have ownership or not, But the passion was to really learn and contribute and feel happy at the end of the day that, you've contributed to the society directly, indirectly. And so I think this was all my research experience, technology, innovation experience. And but somewhere, down the line, I felt that too much of innovation happening, but it is not reaching the marketplace. What is it I can do? So I ended up doing some stuff in patenting. And again, patenting was something which was very fascinating, but I felt it was too much of a back-end work for me, and ended up getting into MBA from a premium B school, which is 𝐔𝐻𝗹cie. And then from there, I really wanted to get into financing, and Yes Bank hired me, and from Yes Bank, I ended up actually getting into healthcare financing, and which was a very transformative experience, because I was able to leverage my experience of, what I gained at Dabur and Ranbaxy to drive business for Yes Bank. And I think we were like most preferred bank as far as the life science and healthcare sector was concerned. And so 6 years of journey with bank was again a very, very interesting entrepreneur journey. When I joined, I think bank was probably 2,000 employees. When I left after 6 years, the bank had almost 12,000 employees. The share price, of the bank was maybe 90 rupees when I joined. I got my joining ESOPs at 90 rupees, but when I left, the price was 1,800. So I wouldn't really be taking credit for all that, but definitely, a small contribution that we would have made, or I would have made as part of the team to contribute to the healthcare of the country, because I think that's where the privatization of healthcare was happening. And it was very crucial that healthcare organizations do get the debt support, and there we were able to contribute, given our success with Medanta. And I think today also I can feel that Medanta is still a history, because 1,500 beds in a single location, there is nothing in the country today, even after 20 years of this. So I think I was extremely fortunate yet again to be able to get a very good experience of working with Dr. Trehan and Medanta as a project. Multi-speciality, 1,500 beds, and having many other ancillary facilities. gave a lot of insights on healthcare financing, and I think that really led me to think that healthcare people don't understand finance and finance people don't understand healthcare, and that is how the germination of BIORx was happened. And 2012, having spent 6 years with bank, and I felt it's now time for me to create a job for myself. And the best was to start an entrepreneurship, and there was nothing called startup at that time. And the idea was to really work with the corporates, work with emerging companies to support them on their acquisitions, on their investments. But it so happened that that was very core to my initial business idea. But in the startup world, as we call it, pivot. So pivot in 2014, we started seeing the wave of startups, and it so happened that the startup environment became so favorable for everybody to contribute. So I think I can share that some of the very interesting deals that I worked on, which are first in sectors like home healthcare, molecular diagnostic, genomics. These are the sectors which are now popularly known and investable sectors, but I started working on these sectors even from 2014. So I think this speaks about our understanding. This speaks about our ability to take and risk, and our ability to mentor people on scaling up journeys through our 360-degree approach that we follow at bank. So at investment bank that I run, our approach is not to really provide a run-of-the-mill solution, but rather provide RX solution, which is prescription. And bio means life sciences and healthcare, and RX means customized. Because we believe that even a diagnostic company A versus diagnostic company B, they will need a customization of services, and ultimately, I think there is a need to have a customized approach towards business development, towards funding, towards identifying the right people and stakeholders to be able to work with them to help them grow.
I think you had a very inspiring journey, and you've had a very futuristic vision towards all the startups that you started working earlier on, which are now getting popular. And I think I'm sure the viewers will learn a lot from your journey, because it is so inspiring and so great. So like you mentioned that you are an investor and you have helped so many companies raise investments. So given your extensive experience in this specifically healthcare investments, how would you describe the current investment landscape for healthcare startups?
A very good question, I must say that. So I think for the seed round, there's a good movement, because people think that the way we have seen in India fintech, the next decade belongs to health tech. So seed, definitely there's enough money available up to 50 lakhs or maybe 1 crore. But the funding from 1 CR to maybe 15 CR, what we call as pre-Series A and Series A, I think there's a challenge. And when I say challenge, I mean like earlier it was very much available, today relatively less available. Today, people are looking at investing in healthcare in a scaled up deals, right? Which we call it generally Series A, Series B, Series C. So there's enough which is happening in Series A, B, C, whereas pre-Series A and before that, C, I think people are not able to get money, because adoption of some of these healthcare innovations in the market is becoming a challenge, and if there's no revenue, I think definitely investors do not really see whether they will be able to make money out of these opportunities. And so I think there is an environment for seed, there's an environment for Series B, C, and D. But I think this is where in between the environment has to be actually robust. And I think there is a clear-cut mechanism that what kind of companies should go up and what kind of companies should actually not be able to secure funding. So I think there is a kind of a clear mechanism what works, what doesn't work now.
Thank you so much for your insights, Dr. Gandhi, and I'm sure this is going to be extremely helpful for all our startups and entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs as well. So like you mentioned that you have been hand-holding a lot of startups and you have invested in so many startups. So even at VOH Incubator, when we were picking out our first cohort, we had a lot of applications and a lot of good ideas were there. But you'll also agree that not every good idea can be turned into a successful business. Not every good idea can become a scalable and practical business. So what do you think is the criteria that you look at, you and other healthcare investors look at when considering an investment into a healthcare startup? And what factors do you believe differentiate successful startups that attract investments from those that struggle?
Absolutely. So I think first and foremost is the team and management depth they have. Because today, there are businesses which can be scaled, and there are businesses which may not need to be scaled, and they are on their own pace. So today we are very clear that what kind of funding, what kind of startups can actually raise funding. So the first is that we have seen that execution, of what is being suggested and versus what comes out, there's a lot of difference. So execution strategy of the founders, because management team I think will come later, but the founders' ability to execute, given their past experience, becomes a very important aspect, right? So I think to me the team is the first and foremost criteria. If the team has a relevant experience, and if the team has also a co-founder, and a founder who has actually a complementary skill sets, right? Rather than having a same kind of skill sets, probably it's not a good idea. I think one needs to look at a team with complementary skill sets, and that is one part. Second is the alignment of the team, because there are times where we have seen that one founder and the co-founder, their shareholding is so disparate that it may not even qualify of co-founder to be called co-founder, because co-founder can't be owning 1%. Like I get so many of proposal where co-founder is just owning 1% and balance is owned by the founder. Now this is not going to be a long-term game, whereas in equity is a long-term game, so the investment is. So with 1% as a co-founder, I think it may not be aligned well. And because it may not be aligned well, there is a possibility that the co-founder may choose to even exit. And that is where, as a funding organization, we get stuck. So I think this is very crucial that the founding team, the alignment, the compliances, all should be, and their relevant experience, the kind of, risk mitigation they have thought through, the ability to pivot, and the attitude. Most important is attitude. Now, there are people who are doing a very good amount of research before they get into it, right? But, their attitude is very fixed. They don't want to pivot. Now, if you don't pivot, one model does not work. And sometimes I have seen, that product market fit, even after 6 years, 5 years, still not achieved. And you have burned $2 million, $3 million. Now, all the scenarios cannot exist from now. They were possible because whatever. But today I think there is enough data available which we know that what works and what doesn't work. So I think it's very, very crucial for even founder to see himself as the first investor in his company. Because even founder, if he doesn't really create value for himself, it will be very difficult to sustain and grow the journey. And most of the time I have seen the founders thinking that they're the founders, but they don't think that they're funders too. Because the initial seed capital has come from them. Now that capital, either through a sweat or through a real contribution or through a family friends who have really trusted on them, is actually a funder, right? And if founder is able to give returns, to himself before he invites the funders, I think that really gives a lot of confidence. And of course, the early on, I feel the customers that you think that you want to engage with, if they can also fund you to start with, I think that really helps a lot. Today we have seen that when founders want to really, raise money, they are very clear that they don't want to go to their customers to raise money. They should be actually raising money from their customers, potential customers. Now, engaging with the stakeholders who will really help them, give them strategic pathway to the success of the market. Because at the end of the KPI, the key performance indicator for an investor is scale. And if you do not have market access, you do not have the scale, we will never be able to get our monetization of the investment that we do. And so even it's concerning for the founder, right? It's only because the founder wins, we will win. It's not like we are at cross purpose. We want to help founder to increase his probability of success, and we are tailing along with him.
Right. I think that's a very interesting view of looking at it, that, consider yourself, the founder should consider himself as the funder. I think that's a very interesting way to look at it, and I'm sure viewers will be inspired by that. So can you walk us through any particular startup or any particular venture that you've handheld from investment to scaling up? You've seen their entire journey. If you could take us through.
Sure. So as you know that I'm a healthcare guy, but just before pandemic, I got an opportunity to work with a very interesting edtech company. And so edtech company came to me when they were at about, I think, 4-5 crore annual turnover, and they had a clear aspiration to become like a 25 crore company in the first, in the second year of their operations. And I think the team was good, solid, the product market fit happened, everything happened. But I think they engaged with me for the first round of funding, and they wanted to raise about $1 million. And but when I started looking at the books, I realized that the compliance was minimal, right? So I started working with them first on the compliance part, and then of course I felt that now compliance is taken care of. Then I started working with them on the business plan. Once the business plan was taken care of, then we started reaching out to the relevant stakeholders who understand what to expect from EdTech and what kind of investors probably we would like to onboard. So we literally scanned through almost 50 plus good angel investors, and we felt that there were 5-7 angel investors from Singapore and the US who probably could fit the bill very well, because they hailed from those towns where the services were offered by the startup, and they could feel connected, right? So it was about tier 3, tier 4, students, to get a job in government, right? And so these NRIs could really feel the connect well, and they saw a big opportunity, and it was quite evident that the opportunity exists. And then of course we ended up supporting them with the $1 million funding. And then the next question was not the funding. The next question was scale up, right? And we needed the right person to help them scale up. Of course, I continued to support them, but crucial part was to help them with the CFO services, like virtual CFO services, virtual compliance services, virtual virtual HR services. So we ended up actually supporting them in all these aspects, and then parallelly we also started working with them on the next round of funding, because the company was growing so fast that we felt that 1 million was not good enough, right? So somewhere we proactively worked with them, and we realized that the business is going so fast, and it was almost like a time where things were almost controlled under the pandemic, and we were almost getting off the pandemic time. And so there was a concept of phygital, not only digital will work, but let's also have physical and all that. We started seeing that probably they will need much more capital than we would have envisaged. So proactive work with them on fundraising, and we ended up actually getting funding to a tune of I would say to a tune of about $5 million from one of the corporate VCs. And that corporate VC invested in that, and then literally today I would say that the company is now on the stage of almost at a run rate of about 100 plus crores, and it is really making a lot of social impact, because I think one of the key things that I have personally seen, that everything I do should have a social relevance, right? And social impact is something which is very, very important. It gives me a lot of satisfaction. And I'm very happy to share this successful story, where from a company which came to us at 4 crore ARR, now it's almost reaching 100 crore ARR, is an interesting story, and that too on a sector which I had no exposure to. And so this is EdTech. And then later I started investing in EdTech. So there are 4 companies now in my platform. In EdTech itself, one is called 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐢, the other is 𝐸𝐬𝐴M, and the third one is called MentorCard, which we recently invested. And we feel that EdTech is the way, digital and physical is the way, and phygital is going to be the way forward. And so I felt that not necessarily that it's only when you know the domain well you should only invest. There are times where if you do not know the domain well, but you know the management way of scaling up the business and really supporting the founder, I think that mitigates kind of a execution challenges and risk, and that's where we feel we are able to add value and help them unlock. So I think it's about providing them the management skill sets to scale up, right? And so today, startup is not anymore a fashionable word, but actually startup to scale up is the most important aspect, and that is where everybody will get returns. So returns will not come from just investing in a startup. Return will come from actually helping companies to scale up, and I think that is the DNA we look for, whether company ability to scale up through our support, whether it is high or low. If it is high, definitely we'll be very keen in investing in that.
Yeah, I think that was a very interesting story of the EdTech startup. And following up on what you said, that sometimes it is not just about investing in a startup, it is also important to make sure that the startup scales up. So again, if we think about the recent times, there are a lot of trends and new things going on, and a lot of times startups get astray and they start going into a different path. So what do you think, how do you assess the balance between innovative solutions and practical implementable ideas when considering investments in healthcare?
Sure. So I think there is a fashion to use a word called deep tech these days, right? But I think let's look at India. Let's look at healthcare. India challenges to deliver healthcare to 1.4 billion people today, right? How do you do that? You can't really have a great disruptive innovation to solve that problem of 1.4 billion. Because access, affordability is a very, very integral part of it. And we cannot just simply rely on government to do it, right? So I feel that moderate innovation and a higher impact is something that we personally feel, and a higher impact means higher social impact, is something that I would be very keen, because I know that deep tech environment to take it to the next level in India is not that conducive right now. At least the healthcare value chain, if you look at. Because even our own doctors, if you look at today, our own doctors, the adoption of medical devices or medtech products in India, which are indigenized in the last 10 years, is very low. Even our own doctors are not prescribing that, right? They're not even using that. Now, so I think a moderate innovation product, but with the view that it should have a disruption in the market, right, is much more important than having a highly innovative product with very low adoption. Because low adoption will not give us value, and if it doesn't give us a value, then why should we be investing into it, right?
At the end of the day, it should make a difference to.
Yeah. So I think in innovation is important, but a medium level of innovation to higher impact is what one should be looking at, and this is what I personally feel that when I look at evaluating ventures, I always look at that, because I think India challenges are very different from Finland versus Israel versus US.
So Dr. Gandhi, we've talked about all the do's. We must also discuss the don'ts. I think sometimes knowing what not to do can be much more important than knowing what to do. So, what common mistakes do you see healthcare startups making when pitching to investors, and what advice would you give to improve their pitch presentations and in order to make successful investment pitches?
Very good question again. I think most of the healthcare startups are either engineers or doctors, and have very little understanding of the financial side. Now, when you start an organization, when you start a private limited company, right, you start with a view to incentivize all the shareholders, right? And if you do not have a core person in the team, who understands the finance and the financial risk mitigation plan well, you will not be able to reach where you should be able to reach. So I think considering that finance is an ancillary subject in a healthcare startup is not a good idea, because I have seen a lot of co-founding team members would be either engineer or a medical doctor, and they just outsource finance part to somebody else. But I think finance needs to be the centric point. Unless you don't keep finance as a central point, you will not be able to succeed in creating a long-term organization where investors will have an interest, right? One of the common mistakes they do is that even companies which have raised one round of funding, if you actually ask them for an MIS, they don't have a clear MIS. How do I evaluate the progress and performance of month after month? So if I don't have the matrix in front of me today, and the founder has not thought through it, it means that he has not even done a detail. And tomorrow, even if we invest, we will not be able to track the performance. And if we don't track the performance, we wouldn't really know what the challenges this startup is facing and how do we go about solving those challenges as an accelerator, right? So I think the ability for a founder to prepare a MIS and manage it, whether he needs money or he doesn't need money, for an internal reporting and for internal usage point of view, I feel is very, very high, because most of these guys do not have MISs. They'll say we are a pre-revenue company. It's fine, you may be pre-revenue company, but you still have your key performance indicators which must be managed on a month-to-month basis. A sound advisory board is very, very crucial, because they think that either they will have all the medical people in the advisory board or they will have all the business people. I think the mix of what you call as medical advisory and the business advisory, I think it's very important. You need to have two kinds of board. One is medical advisory board, because that's very crucial, right? If you do not have the acceptance of the product in the medical fraternity and you don't have the people on the board, it is going to become very big challenging in terms of adoption. But at the same time, people who know the game of sales and marketing, finance, strategy, the public relations, and other aspects of policy making, because policy making is a very crucial aspect, right? And I've had a small experience in policy making also. So if the policy is not conducive, right, then even if you have a great product and everything, you still will have a market risk. Now there are 30 kinds of market risks that actually one needs to look at. And a startup, probably, I think most of the startup founders, I don't think they look at more than 3. Now they need to look at connecting all the 30, 40 possible risks when they start doing business plan, right? They think too much on fundraising plan, but they don't think about business plan, because they are looking at that somebody else should come and fund my risk, while they don't realize that there is too much of risk anyway they are carrying. First they need to actually mitigate their risk plan, right? And this is the problem. So as I said, that funders are looking at you as the first funder of your venture. And if you have not given return to yourself, and if you have not thought to those areas, right? Like most of the time, I have seen that companies do not even have a co-founder, right? They come to us that we will have a co-founder once we get funding. Now, if you have not been able to find a co-founder, right, and you are on the lookout of a funder, I think it's too much to ask for. To get people to invest in you without you have not been able to even find a co-founder for yourself, right? So I think my advice would be to startups, at least have a co-founder who has a complementary skill set, who's equally passionate about what you are doing, right? And who's also willing to put in skin in the game, right? Like the way a founder has put in. Unless you don't have this, the DNA of the organization will never be able to scale up, right? And scaling up is the first thing a startup should look at, not starting up. Right? There are so many medtech companies that I get to know, right? And they have this approval, that approval, they have everything approved, right? But when you ask them for what is called a go-to-market, now they don't have a go-to-market access. They don't want even their customers to fund them.
Right.
I've seen so many of them. Why? You should be embracing your customers to fund you, right? Because if you are doing good work, your customers should also be able to take advantage of the growth that you are showing them. Because if they invest 2 crores in you, they probably have a chance to recover 10 crores from you. You must give the chance to your customers to invest into you. I think this is the mindset we need to create. The best angels, to me, are the people who are going to be your future customer. Involve with them. And that is how the philosophy of IHA is, the Indian Healthcare Angel that I ideated in 2020, and we've supported 6+ startups already out of that, is actually help companies think through GTM from day one. Because if you don't think GTM and you keep looking at developing a product, right? I think we will probably hit the product, but we may not have the GTM. And this is enough. And I can share with you, it's a very painful example. Like, I've known 4 co-founders working on a very disruptive solution for healthcare, for hospital marketing. And so one fine day I saw a LinkedIn post and they said that, we are closing down. And imagine the people who supported them, like high pedigree people as investors. And I asked the founder that what could be the reason for closing down. And he said, we never achieved the product market fit. Now you can't have a scenario where you cannot achieve the product market fit, right? Especially in ventures like digital health, where you have an app. And if there's nobody to fund you, if the customers are not funding you, then why do you have it? Are you really solving the challenge? So, like we did a management research. As a management researcher, I can tell you that one of the major reasons for a startup failure is that the innovation or the product or service they are offering, it was never required. And we think that it is required, right? But we don't do enough market research. I think one of the key aspects for looking at starting a business venture is to do enough market research, gather intelligence that, whether my product or service actually will have enough tangible market at the end of the day. If it is going to be a small market, should you be actually starting? Maybe you pivot, right? So the ability to pivot comes from the flexibility and the attitude of the founder. And if you really are passionate about solving a problem, it's okay. You can be passionate about solving a problem for healthcare and you can continue to do what you want to do. But if you're asking other people to come and invest in you, you've got to also think about their returns. And if you don't think about the returns from day one, nobody is going to come and invest. Because there is enough data now available in this country, in healthcare, across all facets of healthcare, starting from contract research to clinical research to home care to genomics to telemedicine to social impact. You think about anything, I probably would have supported 10 of such startups in each of the themes, right? And we still feel that there are challenges around product market fit, right? The companies probably are pivoting, they're having a survival mode, but scaling up healthcare business, I think, is one of the most crucial aspects, right? Today you see even the nursing homes are, they're like gone, right? And when we were growing up, we used to have like next door nursing home where people today are compelled to go to tertiary hospitals, right? So I think there's enough that needs to be solved. Primary healthcare, even HCL as a group started, and there are many more such groups started, but they just couldn't crack it. So I think there is a lot for healthcare entrepreneurs to crack. They need to crack what is required to be cracked through the management approach, not through only scientific approach. And that is where, having a great team with the complementary skill sets and the well incentivized plans will actually help us get there, And I think there's enough for at least 1,000 healthcare startups to actually cater to India. But again, you have to solve the problem through the scale and through the management.
I think that's absolutely correct because striking the right balance in terms of team or your business plan, your financing plan, striking the right balance is extremely important, as you said. So as we are approaching towards the end of this discussion, if you could just give us an overview to all of our audience, considering your more than 2 decades of experience, where do you see the healthcare and life sciences industry heading in the next decade? And what opportunities and challenges do you see for startups?
Great question again. So I think next IT is bio, right? And there is a convergence of IT and healthcare. So to me, digital health is not an option anymore. It is actually a part of the ecosystem. And doctors are compelled to use it. And tomorrow, like I would say, even today they are compelled. But tomorrow, in fact, it will become mainstream, right? And I'm sure I'm waiting for the day where in medical curriculum, even digital health is integrated, right? MedTech innovation is integrated. So I think this is going to happen soon. And to me, new areas like disruptive areas like cell and gene therapy, molecular diagnostics, genomic, precision oncology, bioinformatics, I think these are the areas where what we have not been able to solve, through the essence of research, we should be able to solve combining the knowledge of IT that we have created in the last 20-25 years, whether it's about AI, blockchain, cloud computing, and solving the mystery of biology which we've not been able to solve. I can truly tell you that being a researcher at heart, my first job was at Dabur, and I still feel that even after 20 years, we are still there in terms of finding the molecular way of solving a cancer and anti-cancer drug development. Maybe there is a solution that you will have through IT approach that we are able to get to the right drug, and the right diagnosis at the right time. I think right diagnosis, right time, and right treatment is the key, and I think we all need to strive towards that. And IT will certainly play a role, and I think we all must embrace IT. And government is doing a lot in that area. And I really want to compliment government, last not the least, but especially Department of Biotechnology, BIORx, Department of Science and Technology, STPI. Interestingly, I had no idea that STPI is doing such a great amount of work in medtech promotion, right? and recently met 40 medtech innovators out of Sanjay Gandhi Hospital in Lucknow. And it was so impressive that, in the hospital, these innovators are trying to solve a problem which are really required to be solved, but they have not much idea about whether the scale of the problem that they're trying to solve is actually huge or not, and everybody wants to chase money, but then without realizing whether is money required or not, It's become fashionable to just design a business plan and start asking money. I think that's something in healthcare needs sanity, and we must really do a lot of homework before we even go and talk to even angels. So that's my advice.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gandhi. I think we've had a whole overview of the entire process for a startup, from investment to the mistakes that they do, the pitch decks, the kinds of investment, what they should look at, what they should work, they should I think you've covered almost everything that was.
I think one thing which I have not covered and I must cover is that sometimes some business models are not investable.
Right.
And we should be open to actually either license the technology out at a right time, what we call as inflection point. At a right time, and there could be a merger acquisition opportunity, there could be a technology licensing opportunity, there could be a JV opportunity. And most of the startups think that no, we do not want to get in right now. But if you don't get it at the right time, sometimes you will not be able to even monetize on it. After 5 years, this technology nobody will even touch. Right? So you should be open. As a founder, you should always be open to embrace ideas and embrace proposals, and then deep evaluate it. Take help of business mentors who understand the potential challenges that will come in your business model, seek solutions, and then take a decision. So I think taking a decision based on the data points, which you may not have access to, but actually others have access to, will enable you to take a right decision at the right time for the right value.
So thank you so much. I think we've had a very interesting conversation today, and I'm sure your experience is going to be so extremely helpful for all our viewers, our startups, our aspiring entrepreneurs. And thank you so much. And I myself am inspired by your journey and all the experiences that we've had. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm assuming that a lot of viewers will actually have a lot of questions. And so please do drop into my LinkedIn profile and reach out to me if you have anything to ask about healthcare. I think that's one sector I've had an opportunity to look at from 360-degree view, and so look forward to making a higher impact with each one of you, all stakeholders. Thank you so much, VOH, for having me once again.
Thank you so much.